The most dangerous man in Seoul just discovered the one thing his money and power can't buy, her attention. And he's about to break every rule he's ever made to get it. Look, if you're not subscribing after this opening, I'm going to assume you're already married to a mafia boss and don't need the fantasy. But for the rest of us living vicariously through fictional dangerous men who are oddly respectful of boundaries, hit that subscribe button. Your algorithm will thank you, and so will Sophia when she realizes she has backup. Sophia Mitchell knew 3 things about survival. Never trust a man who smiles too easily. Never work anywhere that doesn't have 2 exits. And never, ever fall for someone more dangerous than the demons you're running from. Seoul's Crimson Veil broke rule number 2 the moment she walked down the narrow staircase into the underground speakeasy. 1 entrance, 1 exit, and a dozen too many secrets hiding in the amber lighting and velvet shadows. But the job paid triple what anywhere else offered, and disappearing required money. Her dark skin caught the warm light as she descended, her braids swinging against her shoulders with each step. The manager waiting at the bottom was a thin man with nervous hands who couldn't quite meet her eyes. Sophia was used to that. Being a black woman in Seoul meant being either invisible or hypervisible, with no comfortable middle ground. "Miss Mitchell," the manager said, his English careful. "Welcome to Crimson Veil." "Thank you. Beautiful space." She took in the mahogany bar, the top-shelf liquor that probably cost more than 6 months of her rent, the velvet booths arranged for maximum privacy. Everything about this place whispered money and secrets. The manager walked her through the setup during the dead afternoon hours. "The owner values discretion. What you see here, what you hear, it stays here." Sophia ran her fingers along the bar's smooth surface, examining the equipment with professional appreciation. Everything was pristine, expensive, exactly what she needed to practice her craft. "The owner have a name?" "Mr. Kang. He doesn't come in often, but when he does." The manager trailed off, that nervous energy crackling around him again. "When he does, what? Just be professional. Don't ask questions. Do your job well, and you'll be fine." Red flags lined up like dominoes in her mind. But New Orleans had taught her that sometimes you had to dance with danger to stay alive. At least here, the danger spoke a different language, operated in a different world. Her ex and his crew would never think to look for her in a Korean speakeasy buried beneath Seoul's glittering streets. "When do I start?" She started that night. The Crimson Veil came alive after dark. Not the pulsing, chaotic energy of the clubs she'd worked in New Orleans, but something more refined, more dangerous. Conversations happened in hushed tones. Money changed hands without anyone looking at it directly. And everyone, absolutely everyone, seemed to be watching everyone else, including watching her. Sophia felt the stares, some curious, some hostile, some confused. A black woman behind the bar in an exclusive Korean speakeasy wasn't what people expected. She'd learned to use that surprise to her advantage. She focused on what she did best. Her hands moved with practiced precision, building cocktails that were part chemistry, part art. A whiskey sour that balanced sweet and bitter so perfectly it made a regular tear up. A gin concoction with house-made tonic and fresh botanicals that had people asking what kind of magic she was using. Magic wasn't the right word. Her grandmother back in Lagos would have called it something else. The ability to read people, to understand what they needed before they knew themselves. That was a gift passed down through generations of Nigerian women who'd learned to survive by being invaluable. She'd been working for 2 weeks when he first appeared. Sophia noticed him the way you notice a storm rolling in, not by seeing it, but by feeling the air pressure change. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they shifted. Bodies angled differently. The whole room recalibrated around his presence. Kang Siwon moved through the Crimson Veil like he owned it, which he did, but also like he owned everyone in it, which he probably also did. Tall for a Korean man, maybe 6 feet, with sharp features that would have been pretty if they weren't so cold. His suit probably cost more than she'd made in 6 months, charcoal gray and perfectly tailored. But it was his eyes that caught her attention when he finally looked her way. Dark, assessing, completely unreadable. Then those eyes landed on her and stopped. Really stopped. She saw the moment of recognition, not of her specifically, but of her difference. Her brown skin against the backdrop of his world. Her height, her curves, her braids adorned with gold cuffs that caught the light. He took a seat at the bar. Not the end where most owners would sit to survey their domain, but right in the middle, directly in front of her station. The couple she'd been serving suddenly remembered they needed to be somewhere else. "Good evening," Sophia said, her voice steady despite the warning bells clanging in her head. She'd learned to keep her face neutral, her tone professional, no matter who sat across from her. "What can I make for you?" He didn't answer immediately, just studied her with those dark eyes, like he was reading a book written on her face. She was used to being stared at in Seoul, but this felt different, more personal, more dangerous. "You're the new mixologist." Not a question. His English was perfect, barely accented. "I am. Sophia Mitchell." She didn't offer her hand. Something told her touching him would be a mistake. Nigerian. The observation surprised her. Most people in Seoul couldn't distinguish between African countries. "Yes. Lagos originally." "What would you like to drink, Mr. Kang?" A flicker of something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe, that she knew his name, or that she was redirecting the conversation back to business. "Surprise me." Sophia hated that request. It put too much pressure on the first impression, revealed too much about how she saw the person. But she'd learned to read people quickly. Survival skill number 4. She studied him for 3 seconds. Expensive taste, but not flashy. Controlled. Patient. Someone who appreciated quality over quantity, precision over performance. Someone who probably saw beauty in unexpected places. She reached for the Japanese whiskey, the Yamazaki 18, and built him something complex. Not too sweet, not too bitter, with layers that would reveal themselves slowly. She added a touch of hibiscus syrup, a nod to her heritage that most wouldn't recognize, and finished it with a twist of yuzu. When she set it in front of him, their fingers didn't touch, but she felt the near miss like static electricity. He sipped slowly. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Approval, maybe. "Hibiscus," he said after a moment. So he had recognized it. "You know your ingredients." "I know when something has been crafted specifically for me." His eyes met hers. "This isn't a standard drink. You asked me to surprise you. Standard doesn't surprise." "No, it doesn't." He took another sip, considering. "You're very good at what you do." "Thank you. How long have you been in Seoul?" 3 months. Long enough to find her footing, not long enough to feel safe. And before that, other places. She moved to wipe down the already clean bar, creating distance. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Kang?" This time, definite surprise flickered across his features. People didn't dismiss him. She could see that realization playing out behind his eyes. "No. Thank you, Miss Mitchell." He left the bar 20 minutes later, but Sophia felt his absence more than she'd felt his presence. Like he'd taken all the oxygen with him. The nervous manager appeared at her elbow immediately. "What did he say to you?" "Asked me to make him a drink." "What?" "That's it. Just a drink. That's it." The manager looked unconvinced but didn't press. "Mr. Kang doesn't usually sit at the bar. He has a private room upstairs." Sophia filed that information away with all the other red flags she was collecting. Well, tonight he wanted a drink at the bar. What she didn't say was that she'd felt him watching her for the rest of the night. Even after he left, she knew somehow that he'd been there, somewhere in the shadows, observing. New Orleans had taught her to trust her instincts about dangerous men. And every instinct she had was screaming that Kang Siwon was the most dangerous thing she'd encountered since landing in Seoul. The smart thing would be to quit. Find another job, another neighborhood, maybe another city. But Sophia had learned the hard way that sometimes you couldn't keep running. Sometimes danger found you no matter how fast or far you went. So she stayed. And for 3 nights, Kang Siwon didn't return. The crimson veil settled back into its usual rhythm. Sophia learned the regulars, their preferred drinks, their tells. The businessman who ordered scotch when deals went well and bourbon when they didn't. The actress who drank champagne but watched the door like she expected someone to burst through it. The young couple who sat in the corner and spoke in whispers, their hands never quite touching across the table. Everyone had secrets here. Sophia liked that. It meant hers weren't unusual. She also learned which customers tried to touch her braids without permission, which ones made comments about her skin, which ones fetishized her difference, and which ones respected it. Seoul had been an adjustment in ways she hadn't fully anticipated. Back home in Lagos, she was just herself. In New Orleans, she'd been part of a community. Here, she was hyper-visible and often reduced to a curiosity. But behind the bar, mixing drinks, she found her power. Here, she was the expert, the artist, the one in control. On the fourth night, Siwon came back. This time he brought company. 3 men, all Korean, all carrying themselves with the same dangerous grace. They didn't take the private room upstairs. They sat at the bar, spreading out, but leaving the center seat empty. For him, if you're still reading and haven't subscribed, I'm genuinely concerned about your commitment to excellence. This is top-tier mafia romance content, and your girl Sophia is about to get herself in some serious trouble. Subscribe now before Siwon figures out I'm narrating his life without permission. Siwon took his seat, and suddenly Sophia understood what the manager had meant about being professional. This wasn't a casual drink. This was a performance, a display of power, with her as an unwitting participant. Miss Mitchell. His greeting was formal, but something warmed in his eyes when he said her name. Mr. Kang. Gentlemen. She nodded to his companions, who watched her with open curiosity. Some of that curiosity felt too intense, too focused on her appearance rather than her skill. What can I get you? What do you recommend for celebration? What are we celebrating? One of his companions laughed, sharp and short. Siwon silenced him with a glance. A successful negotiation, Siwon said. Something with complexity. Multiple layers. She knew he wasn't just talking about the drink. Sophia turned to her bottles, considering. Celebration drinks were usually champagne, simple and effervescent. But he'd asked for complexity, for layers. He was testing her again. She built something unexpected. A rye base with amaro, fig, and black walnut bitters, topped with a torched orange peel that filled the air with caramelized citrus. Dark, sophisticated, slightly dangerous. She added a float of aged rum and a whisper of palm wine she'd sourced from a specialty shop in Itaewon, the only place in Seoul that carried imports from West Africa. It's called a closing argument, she said, setting 4 glasses down. Popular with lawyers in New Orleans. Strong enough to celebrate with, complex enough to remember why you won. Siwon lifted his glass, studying the dark amber liquid. His companions followed suit. But before drinking, Siwon paused. Palm wine, he said. It wasn't a question. Sophia met his eyes. You have a good palate. Or I pay attention to details. He held her gaze for a beat longer than necessary, then raised his glass. To successful negotiations. They drank. Sophia watched their reactions. The two on the ends grimaced slightly. Too bitter, too strong. But the man on Siwon's right and Siwon himself both showed that same subtle shift she'd seen before. Appreciation. Understanding. You don't make drinks for everyone, Siwon observed. You make them for specific people. Isn't that what you asked for? I asked for a recommendation. You gave me a test. Sophia met his eyes directly. Dangerous, but backing down felt more dangerous. You've been testing me since you sat down. I figured I'd return the favor. Silence spread around them like spilled wine. His companions exchanged glances. The nervous manager appeared from nowhere, hovering at the edge of her peripheral vision. Then Siwon smiled. Not a big smile, barely a curve of his lips, but it transformed his entire face. Suddenly he looked younger, almost human. Fair enough, Miss Mitchell. He finished his drink in one smooth swallow. Same thing tomorrow night. The drink or the test? Both. He left with his companions, and Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her hands were steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. The manager materialized at her elbow. Do you have a death wish? Excuse me. Testing him, challenging him. The manager's nervous energy had ratcheted up to panic. Do you know who he is? My employer. He's connected. Very connected. People don't talk to him that way. What way? Honestly, at all. You don't engage. You serve, you smile, you disappear. Sophia wiped down the bar, her movements methodical. I'm a mixologist, not a ghost. He asked me questions, I answered them. He wanted a good drink, I made him one. It's not about the drinks. The manager lowered his voice. Just be careful. Mr. Kang isn't someone you want paying attention to you. Too late for that, Sophia thought. She could still feel Siwon's eyes on her, even though he'd been gone for 20 minutes. True to his word, he returned the next night. Alone this time. The bar was quieter on weeknights, a handful of regulars nursing drinks and conversation. Siwon's arrival didn't cause the same seismic shift it had before, but Sophia felt it anyway. That electric awareness, like the air before lightning. He took the same center seat. Miss Mitchell. Mr. Kang. The usual. You remember. I remember all my customers' preferences. Not entirely true, but true enough. She remembered his because something about making his drinks felt different. More important. More dangerous. She built him the closing argument without measuring, her hands moving from memory. The gold bangles on her wrists chimed softly as she worked, a sound her grandmother said carried blessings. When she set the drink in front of him, he didn't drink immediately. Sit with me, he said. I'm working. There are 4 other customers, and none of them need you right now. He gestured to the empty stool beside him. Please. The please surprised her. Men like him didn't say please. They commanded, expected, demanded, but didn't ask. Against her better judgment, Sophia came around the bar and took the seat, leaving a careful distance between them. She was aware of how she looked next to him. Her deep brown skin against his pale complexion. Her braids against his perfectly styled black hair. They were a study in contrasts. You're very cautious, Siwon observed. I've learned to be. Bad experiences? She met his eyes. Everyone has bad experiences. That's just called living. True. He sipped his drink, and she watched his throat work as he swallowed. But some experiences are worse than others. Some leave marks. Speaking from personal experience? Always. He turned slightly, angling toward her. What brought you to Seoul, Miss Mitchell? Work. Adventure. Change of scenery. All technically true, none of them the whole truth. You're running from something. Her heart kicked, but she kept her face neutral. That's a bold assumption. Not an assumption. An observation. He gestured with his glass. You check exits every time you walk into a room. You never turn your back to the door. You flinch when people approach too quickly. Those aren't habits people develop from adventure. Those are survival instincts. Sophia stood, breaking whatever moment was forming between them. I need to get back to work. I made you uncomfortable. You made me remember things I'd rather forget. She started to move away, but his voice stopped her. For what it's worth, you're safe here. In my establishment, under my roof, you're protected. She looked back at him. Why would you offer me that? Because excellent employees are difficult to find. And you're excellent at what you do. It should have been a compliment. Instead, it felt like a collar being fitted around her neck. Protection always came with a price. Thank you, Mr. Kang. But I don't need protection. Everyone needs protection, Miss Mitchell. The question is whether they're smart enough to accept it when it's offered. She returned to the bar without responding, throwing herself into making drinks for customers who didn't study her like she was a puzzle to solve, who didn't offer protection that felt more like possession. But she felt Siwon's eyes on her for the rest of the night, and when she finally looked up, he was gone. Only his empty glass remained, and tucked underneath it, a business card with a single phone number. No name, no explanation, just an offering. Sophia threw it away before she could think too hard about keeping it. The next 2 weeks fell into a strange pattern. Siwon came to the Crimson Veil every night, sometimes with companions, more often alone. He always sat at the bar, always ordered the closing argument, though occasionally he'd ask her to make him something different, something that reflected her mood. Those nights were the most dangerous, because Sophia found herself being honest. Making him a drink called Lagos nights when she felt homesick, all gin and ginger and bitter lemon with a float of palm wine. Creating something called Eco Bridge when the city felt overwhelming. Mixing soju with hibiscus and tamarind until it tasted like sunset over water. He never commented on the names or their meanings. Just drank, observed, occasionally asked her questions that felt too personal and yet somehow not invasive. Do you miss Nigeria? Every day? The noise, the chaos, the way everything feels alive, even the air. But not enough to go back. Home isn't always the place you're from. Sometimes it's the place you're trying to become. He understood. She could see it in the way he nodded, in the flicker of recognition in his dark eyes. He had places in his past that called to him, but couldn't hold him anymore. They were building something in these nightly conversations. Not friendship exactly. Something more complex, more dangerous. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. And Sophia knew she needed to stop it before it became something neither of them could walk away from. One night, a group of Korean businessmen took seats near her station, already drunk from dinner elsewhere. Expensive watches, designer suits, the casual cruelty of men who believed money excused behavior. She'd learned to spot the type quickly. One of them called out to her in Korean, then laughed when she didn't respond. English, his companion said. The African girl doesn't speak Korean. African girl. Not mixologist. Not bartender. Just a reduction to her continent and gender. Sophia kept her face neutral, continued making drinks for other customers. She'd dealt with worse in New Orleans, in Lagos, in every city she'd worked. Casual racism was just another occupational hazard when you were a black woman in spaces that didn't expect you. Hey, the first man called in English. Come here. Make us something exotic. The way he said exotic made her skin crawl. She approached with professional courtesy she didn't feel. What can I get you, gentlemen? What's good? What do they drink in Africa? Africa is a continent with 54 countries. You'll need to be more specific. One of them laughed. She's educated. I like that. I'm also expensive, Sophia said coolly. Top-shelf liquor only at this bar. Will that be a problem? The first man's smile turned nasty. You think you're better than us? Coming to our country, taking jobs from Korean women, walking around like you own the place. Sophia's hand tightened on the bottle she was holding. She'd been here before. Different country, different accent, same hate dressed up in drunken bravado. I think I'm good at my job, she said evenly. Now, would you like to order something? Or should I help other customers? We want you to show some respect. You're in Korea now. You should learn your place. Her place, a quiet voice said from behind them, is behind my bar, doing the job I pay her exceptionally well to do. Your place is anywhere but here. Siwon had appeared without warning, his 3 regular companions flanking him. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. The drunk businessmen turned, and Sophia watched their faces cycle through recognition, fear, and poorly masked panic. Mr. Kang, the first man stammered. We didn't mean any disrespect. We were just having fun. Fun. Siwon's voice was soft, deadly. You think insulting my employee is fun? We didn't know she was important to you. She shouldn't have to be important to me for you to treat her with basic human decency. Siwon moved closer, and the men actually flinched. But since we're clarifying importance, let me be very clear. Miss Mitchell is under my protection. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. And we all know what happens to people who threaten me. The silence was suffocating. Now apologize to her, Siwon continued. And then leave my establishment. You're banned. Permanently. The men stumbled over themselves apologizing to Sophia, who accepted with a cool nod, but didn't pretend to mean it. They left quickly, practically running for the exit. When they were gone, Siwon turned to her. Are you all right? I've handled worse. I'm sure you have. But you shouldn't have to. He glanced at his companions. Make sure word spreads. Anyone who makes Miss Mitchell uncomfortable answers to me personally. His men nodded and dispersed, already pulling out phones to send messages. Within an hour, half of Seoul's underworld would know that the Nigerian mixologist at Crimson Vale was under Kang Siwon's protection. Sophia didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. After the bar closed and the last customers left, Siwon remained. He'd moved to his usual seat, waiting while she cleaned and prepped for the next night. You didn't have to do that, Sophia said, wiping down bottles. Yes, I did. I can handle drunk idiots. I'm sure you can handle many things. That doesn't mean you should have to. He accepted the drink she'd automatically started making him. How often does that happen? Often enough that I've stopped counting. His jaw tightened. It won't happen here again. Because you've claimed me? The words came out sharper than she intended. Because now I'm under your protection, which means I'm your property. No. Because you're exceptional at what you do, and anyone too ignorant to see that doesn't belong in my establishment. He met her eyes. This isn't about ownership, Sophia. It's about respect. The use of her first name stopped her. He'd never used it before, always Miss Mitchell, formal and distant. Hearing it now, in this moment, felt intimate in a way that terrified her. In my experience, men like you don't make distinctions between respect and ownership. Men like me, he repeated softly. You mean men like your ex? She hadn't mentioned her ex, not specifically. But of course he knew. Men like Siwon always did their research. His name was Marcus, she said, tired suddenly. He worked for a crew in the 9th Ward. Told me it was just business, just survival. Until the day his business got our apartment shot up and my best friend killed because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Siwon's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Understanding. Maybe even regret. I ran, Sophia continued. Took everything I had and left. Went back to Lagos for a year, but even there I wasn't safe. Marcus had connections everywhere. So I came to Seoul. Promised myself I'd never get involved with that life again. And then you walked into my bar. And then I walked into your cage. She met his eyes. Because that's what this is, right? You offer protection I didn't ask for. You deal with threats I didn't know existed. You're making decisions about my safety without asking if that's what I want. What do you want? The question hung between them, heavy and complicated. I want to not have to want anything from you, Sophia said honestly. To make my drinks and perfect my craft and build a life that's mine, not defined by whoever I'm connected to. I spent my whole life being defined by other people's expectations. In Lagos, I was supposed to be a good Nigerian daughter who married well and had babies. In New Orleans, I was supposed to be Marcus's girl, pretty and quiet and grateful for his protection. Here, I'm supposed to be exotic and grateful and invisible all at once. She set down the bottle she'd been holding. I'm tired, Siwon. I'm tired of performing for people who will never see me as fully human. Tired of being either too much or not enough. And I'm especially tired of powerful men who think their protection is a gift instead of another cage. Silence stretched between them, heavy with truth neither wanted to acknowledge. I understand, Siwon said finally. And you're right. I overstepped. He stood, pulling his jacket on. Your position here is secure. You'll face no further harassment from customers. But I'll respect your boundaries. No more protection you didn't ask for. No more involvement in your life. He moved toward the exit, and Sophia felt something twist in her chest. Relief, maybe. Or regret. Siwon, she called out before he reached the stairs. He turned back. Thank you. For tonight. For understanding. Be safe, Sophia. He left, and she stood alone in the empty bar, wondering why doing the right thing felt so much like a loss. Listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, I'm starting to think you enjoy emotional suffering. Because that's where we're headed, and you're going to want to see how Sophia handles what's coming next. Hit subscribe like your Netflix queue depends on it, because this story is better than anything in your watch list. 3 days passed. Siwon didn't return to the Crimson Veil. Sophia told herself it was what she wanted, what she'd asked for. Space. Distance. Freedom from the complicated pull she felt whenever he was near. But the bar felt different without him. Emptier. Like something essential had been removed. She focused on her work, creating new cocktails, perfecting her technique. The customers were respectful now, word having clearly spread about what happened to those who weren't. She should have been grateful. Instead, she felt the weight of invisible protection, the cage she couldn't see but knew surrounded her. On the 4th night, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. The text was in English. Asterisk, your friend from New Orleans is looking for you. Thought you should know. J asterisk. Sophia's blood turned to ice. J could only be one person. J, one of Siwon's men, the one who'd smiled at her sometimes when she made his drinks. Which meant Siwon was still having her watched. Protected. Which meant Marcus or someone from his crew had tracked her to Seoul. She should have been angry about the surveillance. Instead, all she felt was terror, sharp and immediate. If Marcus found her, if he knew where she was. Her phone rang. Siwon's number, though she'd never saved it. How did you know? She asked instead of hello. I made inquiries after our conversation. Wanted to understand the threat you were running from. You had no right to investigate my past. I had every right to protect what matters to me. The confession hung between them, raw and unexpected. Sophia, he continued when she didn't respond. Your ex is in Seoul. He arrived 2 days ago with 3 members of his crew. They've been asking questions in Itaewon, showing your picture around. Her apartment was in Itaewon. Close to the African shops, the Nigerian restaurants, the places that felt like home. She'd thought she was being smart, staying connected to her community. Instead, she'd made herself easy to find. What do I do? You come here. Let me keep you safe while we handle this. Handle how? Do you really want to know? She thought about Marcus, about the violence he'd brought into her life, about her best friend Chidinma bleeding out on their kitchen floor while Sophia held her and screamed for help that came too late. Thought about the nights she'd spent terrified, jumping at shadows, wondering when his world would swallow her completely. No, she said quietly. I don't want to know. I just want it to stop. Then trust me. Just this once. Let me fix this, and then you can make whatever choice you want about your life. Stay in Seoul, leave Korea, work for me, or never see me again. Your choice, no strings. Why do I feel like there are always strings with you? Because you're smart. There are always strings. But I'm offering to cut them after this is done. I promise you, Sophia. Help me protect you now, and then you're free. Completely free. Sophia made a decision born of exhaustion and fear and a desperate need to stop running. Where do I go? He gave her an address in Gangnam, a high-rise that probably cost more per month than she made in a year. Someone will be waiting for you in the lobby. Pack what matters. Leave everything else. Siwon, thank you for trusting me. He hung up before she could tell him that trust wasn't the right word. Necessity, maybe. Resignation. The acknowledgement that sometimes you couldn't fight your way clear alone. She packed one bag. Clothes, her knife set, the photo of her grandmother in Lagos that was the only family she had left, the small wooden sculpture her father had carved before he died. Everything else was just stuff, replaceable and meaningless. The man waiting in the lobby was Jay, his expression professionally neutral. Miss Mitchell, if you'll follow me. The apartment he took her to was on the 30th floor, all glass windows and modern furniture that looked too expensive to sit on. But it was the view that caught her breath. Seoul spread out below like a circuit board, all lights and connections and hidden currents. Mr. Kang will be here soon, Jay said. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourself to anything. Then she was alone. Sophia stood at the window, watching the city breathe. Somewhere down there, Marcus or his people were looking for her. Somewhere, Siwon was doing whatever dark things he did to protect his interests. And she was here, 30 floors up, safe in a cage that felt more like sanctuary. She explored the apartment while she waited. The kitchen was stocked with ingredients that surprised her. Palm oil, egusi seeds, dried stockfish, things you couldn't find easily in Seoul, things that required knowing where to look and caring enough to look. Siwon had done this. For her. The realization settled in her chest, warm and complicated. She didn't hear him enter, just suddenly felt his presence behind her, that electric awareness she'd been trying to ignore for weeks. You have a gussie, she said, not turning around. I thought you might want to cook. If you stayed here for a while. How did you even know what to get? I asked someone, a Nigerian woman who owns a restaurant in Itaewon. She was very helpful once I explained the situation. Sophia turned to face him. He looked tired, his suit jacket gone, his sleeves rolled up. There was blood on his cuff, just a spot, easily missed if you weren't looking. Is it handled? It's handled. He moved to pour himself a drink from the bar cart. Your ex and his crew are leaving Seoul tonight. They understand that you're under my protection, and anyone who touches you answers to me and everyone I'm connected to. Did you hurt them? I made my point clearly. Whether that required hurting them is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant to me. He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. I won't apologize for protecting you, but I didn't kill anyone, if that's what you're asking. I simply made it clear that the cost of touching you was higher than they were willing to pay. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. And what's your cost? What do I owe you for this? Nothing. People like you don't do things for nothing. People like me, he repeated, something like pain crossing his features. You still see me as just another dangerous man. Another Marcus. Aren't you? Siwon set down his glass and moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. I'm worse than Marcus in some ways. I control more, hurt more, command more power. But I'm different in one crucial way. What's that? I see you. Not as property. Not as a trophy. Not as some exotic prize to be won. I see Sophia Mitchell, brilliant mixologist from Lagos by way of New Orleans, who puts palm wine in her cocktails and carries her grandmother's photo everywhere she goes. Who's terrified off being caged, but too strong to ever really be caught. Who makes art out of bottles and ice and sees through every mask people wear. His words hit her like a physical thing, stripping away her defenses. That's not fair, she whispered. What's not fair? Saying things like that. Making me want to believe you're different. I am different. Or maybe I'm not. And the only thing that's different is how I feel about you. He reached up, hesitated, then let his hand fall. I've never cared about someone's freedom more than I cared about keeping them close. Until you. Sophia felt something crack inside her chest. Why me? Because you're the first person in a decade who's looked at me and seen a man making choices instead of a title making demands. Because you challenged me, tested me, saw through me, and didn't run until you absolutely had to. He smiled, sad and knowing. Because you make drinks that taste like home, and I haven't felt at home in anything for longer than I can remember. The honesty in his voice made her ache. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared of wanting this. Scared of you. Scared that if I let myself care, I'll wake up one day covered in someone else's blood again. I can't promise you safety from my world. I can't promise that violence won't touch us, but I can promise that I'll never make you responsible for it. Never ask you to compromise yourself for me. Never cage you in the name of protection. Those are big promises. I know, and I'll probably break some of them without meaning to. I'm not good at this, Sophia. At caring about someone more than I care about control. But I want to try. If you'll let me. Sophia studied his face, searching for the lie, the manipulation, the trap. But all she saw was exhaustion and honesty and something vulnerable that looked a lot like hope. I need time, she said finally. To think. To process. To figure out what I want without anyone telling me what I should want. Take all the time you need. Stay here as long as you want. I'll have Jay bring your things from your apartment. And when you're ready, whatever you decide, I'll respect it. He moved toward the door, and Sophia's hand shot out, catching his wrist. They both froze at the contact, at the warmth of skin on skin. Where are you going? To give you space. There are 3 other bedrooms. I'll take one of them. You're staying? Marcus and his crew are leaving tonight, but I want to make sure they're gone before I leave you alone. Is that okay? It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like consideration. Like someone caring enough to ask permission instead of assuming rights. Okay, she said softly. Thank you. His eyes dropped to where her hand still circled his wrist, her dark fingers against his pale skin. When he looked back up, something heated flickered in his gaze. You should let go, he said, voice rough. Why? Because if you don't, I'm going to do something we're not ready for. Sophia's pulse kicked, but she held on. Like what? Like kiss you until you understand that I'm not Marcus. That I'm not every man who's tried to own you. That what I feel is complicated and dangerous and probably a terrible idea, but it's real. The air between them crackled with possibility. Sophia knew she should let go, should step back, should protect herself from the inevitable hurt. But her grandmother used to say that sometimes the bravest thing was letting yourself want something even when it scared you. Maybe I want to understand, she whispered. Siwon moved so fast she barely saw it. One moment they were separate. The next his hand was cupping her face with heartbreaking gentleness, his thumb tracing her cheekbone like she was something precious. Last chance, he murmured. Tell me to stop. Instead of answering, Sophia rose on her toes and closed the distance between them. The kiss was nothing like she expected. Not demanding or possessive, but questioning. Careful, like he was learning her through touch, asking permission with every movement. His other hand found her waist, fingers spreading wide but not pulling, just holding, anchoring. Sophia's hands found his shoulders, feeling the tension coiled beneath expensive fabric. She kissed him back with weeks of frustration and fear and want, pouring every complicated emotion into the press of lips and breath. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Siwon rested his forehead against hers. We should stop, he said, even as his hands tightened on her waist. We should, she agreed, not moving. This is a terrible idea. The worst. You're vulnerable right now. I don't want to take advantage. That made her laugh, sharp and real. Siwon, I've been making my own choices since I was 16. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because I'm not sure I do. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. I want you, Sophia. Have since the first night you made me that drink with hibiscus and looked at me like I was just another customer. But I want you choosing me because you wanna, not because you're scared or grateful or feeling like you owe me something. The consideration in his words, the genuine concern for her agency, did more to break down her walls than any pretty speech could have. I don't feel like I owe you, she said carefully. I feel like maybe, possibly, against all logic and self-preservation, I might be starting to care about you. And that terrifies me more than Marcus or danger or anything else. Good. Good. If you weren't terrified, I'd worry you weren't paying attention. He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. I'm terrified too. Of hurting you. of becoming another cage, of wanting you so much that I forget how to let you be free. So what do? We take it slow. We figure it out together. We mess up and apologize and try again. He tucked one of her braids behind her ear. And we promise to be honest, even when honesty is scary. I can do honest. Then honestly, tell me what you need right now. Sophia considered. What did she need? Safety, yes, but also connection. Comfort. The reminder that she wasn't alone in this strange city, in this complicated situation, in the terrifying act of letting herself care again. Stay, she said. Not in another bedroom. Here, with me, just to sleep. I don't want to be alone tonight. Are you sure? I'm sure. They moved to the master bedroom together, awkward and careful. Siwon lent her one of his shirts to sleep in, the fabric hanging to her mid-thigh and smelling like his cologne. When they finally climbed into bed, he stayed on his side, respecting boundaries. But in the darkness, Sophia reached across the space between them and found his hand. Their fingers intertwined, holding on like anchors in a storm. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. For protecting me without trying to own me. For being patient. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Thank you for giving me a chance to be better than I thought I could be. They fell asleep like that, holding hands across the divide, not quite together, but not quite separate either. Building something new in the space between danger and trust. If you're not already subscribed, what are you even doing with your life? We just had a kiss. A meaningful, consent-filled, emotionally devastating kiss between two people who are clearly falling for each other, but terrified to admit it. Subscribe now or miss what happens when morning comes, and they have to figure out what this means. Morning came with Seoul sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Sophia woke to find Siwon already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Creepy, she murmured, voice rough with sleep. Captivated, he corrected. You snore, by the way. I do not. You do. It's adorable. She threw a pillow at him, and he caught it, laughing. The sound was so unexpected, so genuine, that Sophia felt her heart do something dangerous in her chest. What happens now? She asked, suddenly serious. Siwon sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Now I go deal with some business. Make sure Marcus and his crew are actually gone. Reinforce some boundaries. And you stay here where it's safe. For how long? A few days. Maybe a week. Just until I'm certain the threat is neutralized. Sophia sat up too, clutching his shirt around her. And then you decide. Stay here, go back to your apartment, return to work, quit, and do something else entirely. Whatever you want. What do you want? He met her eyes, vulnerability naked on his face. I want you to choose me. Choose this, whatever this is. But only if it's really what you want. Not because you're scared or grateful or don't see another option. Because you want to build something with me. That's a lot of pressure for a first morning after. I know, but I promised honesty. He stood, already reaching for his clothes. There's food in the kitchen. Jay will be outside if you need anything. And Sophia? Yeah. Don't run. Not yet. Give this a chance. He left, and Sophia sat in the enormous bed, surrounded by luxury and confusion and the lingering scent of his cologne. Her phone buzzed with messages from the Crimson Veil manager asking when she'd return to work. From her cousin in Lagos asking why she hadn't called in weeks. From the life she'd been building before everything got complicated. She ignored them all and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Siwon left early each morning, returning late at night. They'd eat dinner together, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in a world where violence was currency and trust was fatal. She told him about Lagos, about her grandmother who'd raised her after her parents died, about the dreams she'd had before Marcus made her start running. They didn't kiss again, didn't cross that invisible line they'd drawn. But the tension built between them, sweet and heavy, like honey waiting to spill. On the fourth night, Siwon came home with blood on his shirt. Not a spot this time, but serious stains that made Sophia's stomach drop. Whose blood? She asked from the kitchen. Not mine. He started to move past her. I'll shower. Siwon. She caught his arm. What happened? Marcus didn't leave Seoul like I told him to. He tried to make a move on one of my businesses. Sent a message that he wasn't afraid of me. So you sent one back. Yes. The simple honesty hit her like cold water. No excuses, no justifications. Just the truth of what he was, what he did. Is he dead? No. But he understands now that continuing this would cost him everything. Siwon met her eyes. I know this isn't what you want to hear. I know seeing this side of my world makes you want to run. But I promised honesty. Sophia studied the blood on his shirt, the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of violence he carried so others wouldn't have to. And she made a choice. Go shower, she said. I'll make dinner. Surprise flickered across his face. You're not leaving? I'm not leaving. But we're going to talk about boundaries. About what I can accept and what I can't. About how we navigate your world without it swallowing me whole. Something like relief softened his features. Okay. Yes. Whatever you need. While he showered, Sophia cooked. Jollof rice from the ingredients he'd stocked, with chicken and plantains and the pepper sauce her grandmother used to make. Comfort food. Home food. The kind of meal that reminded you that life existed beyond violence and fear. When Siwon emerged, clean and wearing soft clothes, he stopped in the kitchen doorway. It smells incredible. It's jollof. My grandmother's recipe. She plated food for both of them. Sit. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the familiar flavors easing some of the tension in the room. This is the best thing I've ever tasted, Siwon said finally. Better than my cocktails? Different category. But yes. Sophia set down her fork. I need to tell you what I can and can't accept. I'm listening. I can accept that you're part of a dangerous world. That sometimes violence is necessary. That you make decisions I won't always agree with. She met his eyes. What I can't accept is being kept in the dark. Being protected to the point where I have no agency. Being turned into something delicate that needs to be sheltered from reality. You're the opposite of delicate. Then treat me that way. Tell me the truth, even when it's ugly. Let me make my own choices about what risks I take. Trust that I'm strong enough to handle your world without being destroyed by it. Siwon reached across the table, taking her hand. I can do that. It won't be easy for me. Every instinct I have screams to protect you from everything, including myself. But I'll try. That's all I'm asking. Trying. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't you run today? When you saw the blood, when I told you what I'd done, why didn't you leave? Sophia considered the question, searching for truth beneath fear. Because I realized something. You're not Marcus. Marcus brought violence into my life without asking, without warning, without caring how it affected me. He made me collateral damage in his world. But you're trying to keep your world separate from me. You're trying to protect me without controlling me. And when I asked for honesty, you gave it to me, even knowing it might make me leave. She squeezed his hand. That's the difference. You're giving me choices. Ugly, complicated choices, but choices nonetheless. And I'm choosing to stay. To see where this goes. To trust that maybe we can build something real in the space between your darkness and my light. Siwon's eyes were bright with something that looked a lot like hope. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But I'm choosing you anyway. She smiled. Besides, someone needs to teach you how to make proper jollof rice. This Korean-African cultural exchange goes both ways. He laughed, and the sound filled the apartment with warmth. Deal. You teach me to cook, I'll teach you Korean. I'm terrible at languages. I'm terrible at cooking. We'll suffer together. They cleaned up dinner together, moving around the kitchen with easy synchronicity. When everything was put away, they stood at the window watching Seoul's lights flicker like earthbound stars. Can I ask you something? Sophia said. Anything. Why me? Really, you could have anyone. Someone without complications, without a violent ex, without all the baggage I carry. Why choose this? Siwon turned to face her, his expression serious. Because everyone else wanted Kang Siwon, the powerful boss with money and influence. They wanted what I could give them. But you? You wanted nothing from me. You looked at me and saw just a man. Flawed, complicated, capable of being better or worse depending on his choices. He reached up, cupping her face with gentle hands. You made me want to be better. Not to impress you or control you, but because you made me believe I could be more than just what I was born into. That's rare, Sophia. That's precious. And I'm selfish enough to want to keep it. Keep me, you mean? No. Keep this. Keep the version of myself I am when I'm with you. The man who can laugh and cook and imagine a life beyond violence and power games. Sophia rose on her toes and kissed him. Not questioning this time, but answering. This was her choice, her decision, her leap into something terrifying and complicated and maybe, possibly, worth the risk. Siwon kissed her back with careful intensity, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. His hands stayed gentle, even as hers fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Not just tonight. Stay and build something with me. Something that's ours." "I'll stay," she promised. "But we do this my way. Honest. Equal. No cages." "No cages," he agreed. "Just trust." "Just trust," she echoed. They stood there in the window's light, holding each other and the promise of something new. Two people from different worlds, different lives, finding unexpected ground in the space between danger and hope. Outside, Seoul hummed with life and secrets and infinite possibilities. Inside, Zara Mitchell and Kang Siwon began building something that defied every rule about power and protection and what love could look like when it grew in unexpected soil. The next morning, Sophia woke to find Siwon in the kitchen attempting to make breakfast. The results were catastrophic. "What are you doing?" she asked, staring at what might have once been eggs. "Cooking. Or trying to." He gestured helplessly at the pan. "I don't think I'm doing it right." Sophia laughed, the sound bright and real. "Move over. Let me show you." She guided his hands, teaching him how to crack eggs properly, how to scramble them just right. Their bodies pressed close in the small space, comfortable now, natural. When the eggs were done, they tasted terrible, but they ate them anyway, grinning at each other like idiots. "This is nice," Siwon said. "Terrible eggs? Normal. Domestic. Like we're just two people learning each other instead of a mafia boss and the mixologist he's trying not to cage." "Exactly that." Sophia's phone rang, interrupting the moment. The Crimson Veil manager, again. She'd been avoiding the calls, but she couldn't hide forever. "I should probably go back to work," she said, answering and immediately regretting it. "Miss Mitchell." The manager's voice was tight with stress. "We need you. Mr. Kang's orders or not, we're drowning without you." Sophia glanced at Siwon, who was watching her with careful neutrality, leaving the choice entirely to her. "I'll be in tomorrow night," she said finally. "Tell the staff to prep the bar. We're doing a menu overhaul." When she hung up, Siwon was smiling. "A menu overhaul? If I'm coming back, I'm doing it my way. New cocktails. Nigerian Korean fusion drinks. Something that's mine, not just what's expected. I love it." He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Transform the whole place. Make it yours. I'll back you completely. Even if it loses you money? Even then, some things matter more than profit." That afternoon, Sophia went back to her apartment in Itaewon to pack properly. Siwon sent Jay with her, not as a guard, but as help carrying boxes. Her neighbors stared as she loaded up her life, whispering about the expensive car and the serious man helping her. Mrs. Okafor from downstairs stopped her in the hallway. "You're leaving?" "Not Seoul. Just moving." The older Nigerian woman studied her face, seeing too much. "Be careful, child. Seoul is far from home, and men with money often have expensive problems." "I know, Ma. I'm being careful." "Are you happy?" The question caught Sophia off guard. Was she happy? She thought about Siwon's rare smiles, about cooking jollof rice together, about the way he asked instead of demanded, about feeling seen and valued and protected without being owned. "I'm getting there," she said honestly. Mrs. Okafor patted her cheek. "Then go with God. But remember, you're stronger than any man's protection. Don't forget that." "I won't." "Okay, I need you to subscribe right now because we're about to get into the good stuff. Like, the really good stuff where Sophia goes back to work and shows everyone exactly who they've been underestimating. If you're not subscribed, you're basically saying you don't believe in strong women showing the world what they're made of. Don't be that person. Subscribe. Sophia's return to Crimson Veil was nothing short of triumphant. She walked in wearing gold, a dress that hugged her curves and caught every light, her braids styled in an elaborate crown that her grandmother would have been proud of. She looked like royalty, and she knew it. The staff stopped talking when she entered. The nervous manager actually bowed. "Miss Mitchell, welcome back." "Thank you. I have some changes I'd like to implement." "Of course. Whatever you need." She spent the afternoon transforming the bar. New bottles, new equipment, new glassware that she'd sourced from a Nigerian shop in Itaewon. By the time the doors opened, the Crimson Veils bar had been reborn. The new menu was a declaration. Eco Nights, Lagos Sunrise, Han River Dreams. Every cocktail was a bridge between her world and theirs, between Nigerian flavors and Korean spirits, between past and present. The customers were hesitant at first, then curious, then obsessed. By midnight, she had a line of people waiting for her drinks, and the register was singing with profit. Siwon appeared around 2 a.m., taking his usual seat at the bar. But this time, he wasn't alone. A woman accompanied him, beautiful and polished, wearing designer everything and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sophia's stomach twisted, but she kept her face neutral. "Miss Mitchell," Siwon said formally. "This is Min Iseo. She's the daughter of a business associate." "How nice." Sophia turned to the woman. "What can I get you?" "Whatever he's having," Min Iseo said, her hand resting possessively on Siwon's arm. Sophia's jaw tightened, but she made 2 closing arguments, setting them down with professional precision. She watched Min Iseo sip and grimace, clearly hating the bitter complexity. "It's very interesting," Min Iseo said, the way people said interesting when they meant terrible. "It's an acquired taste," Sophia replied. "Not everyone has the palate for it." The insult was subtle but landed. Min Iseo's eyes narrowed. Siwon's lips twitched, fighting a smile. "If you'll excuse me," Sophia said, already moving to help other customers. She refused to watch them together, refused to let jealousy turn her into someone petty and small. But later, after Min Iseo had left with disappointed goodbyes, Siwon remained. "That was a business obligation," he said when the bar had emptied. "You don't owe me explanations." "Yes, I do. We promised honesty." He caught her hand as she wiped down the bar. "Her father is trying to arrange a marriage. It's traditional, strategic, everything my world expects." Sophia's heart dropped. And I told him no, politely but firmly, that I'm not interested in strategic marriages or traditional arrangements, that I'm involved with someone who matters to me. "You told him about me?" "I told him I was unavailable. The rest is none of his business." Siwon pulled her closer. "But I'm telling you everything, because I promised no cages, no secrets." "Min Iseo means nothing." "You mean everything." The words settled warm in her chest. "That was awful, watching her touch you." "Good. Now you know how I feel every night watching men flirt with you across this bar." "That's different. That's just customers." "And Min Iseo was just business." "But we're both allowed to be jealous and possessive and completely irrational when it comes to each other." Sophia laughed despite herself. "This is ridiculous." "It's honest." He tugged her closer until they were pressed together across the bar. "I don't want traditional arrangements or strategic marriages. I want complicated and messy and real. I want you, even though I'm difficult, especially because you're difficult. Easy doesn't interest me anymore." She kissed him then, right there in the empty bar, claiming him as thoroughly as he'd claimed her. When they broke apart, both were grinning. "Come home with me," Siwon said. "I am home. With you." They left Crimson Veil together, hands intertwined, walking into Seoul's neon night. Behind them, the bar glowed with new life, transformed by someone brave enough to bring herself fully into a space that hadn't known it needed her. Above them, stars fought through city light, bearing witness to something unexpected blooming in concrete and shadow. 2 people from different worlds building a bridge made of trust and truth in the dangerous choice to be vulnerable. Sophia Mitchell had run from danger before, but sometimes the bravest thing wasn't running. Sometimes it was standing still, planting roots, and daring to believe that love could grow even in the darkest soil. And Kang Siwon, who'd spent his life building walls and maintaining distance, learned that sometimes the greatest power wasn't control but surrender. The courage to let someone see you completely and trust they wouldn't use that knowledge as a weapon. 3 months later, Sophia stood in her own space. Not Crimson Veil, though she still worked there 3 nights a week. Her own cocktail lounge in Itaewon, funded partially by her savings and partially by a silent investor who asked for nothing but the privilege of watching her thrive. The opening night was packed. Nigerians and Koreans, expats and locals, all coming together for drinks that bridged cultures and continents. Mrs. Okafor sat in the place of honor, beaming with pride. Jay worked the door, keeping order with professional efficiency. and Siwon sat at the bar, watching Sophia work with undisguised admiration. "You're staring," she said, sliding him a new creation. "I'm appreciating. What's this one called?" She met his eyes. "Second chances." He tasted it slowly, letting the flavors unfold. Whiskey and hibiscus and something sweet she'd never tell him was palm wine mixed with Korean honey. "It's perfect," he said. "Like us. We're not perfect. No, but we're real. And that's better." Sophia leaned across the bar, kissing him quickly before customers demanded her attention. Much better. The night wore on, successful beyond her wildest dreams. She'd built this. Brick by brick, bottle by bottle, choice by choice. Had claimed her space in a city that hadn't known what to do with her, had transformed fear into power, had turned running into standing ground. And beside her, supporting without smothering, protecting without caging, Siwon had learned to be more than just what he'd been born into. Had discovered that sometimes strength meant stepping back. That true power meant lifting others instead of holding them down. They were building something together now. Not perfect, not safe, but theirs. A love that acknowledged darkness but chose light. That respected boundaries while building bridges. That understood freedom and protection could coexist if both people committed to the dance. Seoul hummed around them, ancient and modern, traditional and revolutionary. A city of contrasts that had made space for their particular contradiction. A Nigerian woman and a Korean gangster, mixing cocktails and cultures, danger and domesticity, into something entirely new. If you made it to the end without subscribing, I honestly don't know what to tell you. We just witnessed an entire love story unfold. Two people from completely different worlds finding each other and choosing to build something real despite every reason not to. Subscribe now, thank me later, and get ready for more stories that'll make you believe in love even when it's complicated and messy and absolutely worth it. Sophia Mitchell had learned that home wasn't Lagos or New Orleans or even Seoul. Home was the choice to be seen, to be valued, to build something beautiful even when the foundation was cracked and imperfect. And in the end, that was the only magic she needed. The kind you created yourself, one brave choice at a time.